So today we're dissecting the top underdog stories in combat sports. And I think there's no better place to start than with Matt Serra versus Georges St-Pierre back at UFC 69 in 2007.
Oh, man, that fight. Talk
Okay.
about a prime example of an underdog story for the ages. GSP, even if you only casually follow MMA, you know that name. He just won the welterweight title. And Serra, while definitely a respected veteran, was a massive, massive underdog. Which is why it was so incredible when, in the very first round, Serra managed to knock GSP out cold. Like the arena went silent, then just erupted. Nobody could believe it. GSP was known for his striking, his wrestling, keeping the fight standing. Serra was a master of getting you to the ground, into his world.
So he sees a chance, gets GSP down, and that's what leads to the knockout.
And it's like, you talk about those moments that change everything. And for women's MMA, that Holly Holm head kick on Ronda Rousey, that was seismic.
Oh, absolutely. Talk about a moment that transcended the sport. I mean, Rousey, she wasn't just winning, she was dominating, breaking records, becoming a global superstar.
And Holm, she was a world champion boxer, incredibly skilled, but still, going into that fight, she was a huge underdog.
Huge. Like, nobody expected her to dethrone Rousey.
Nobody. And then, boom, that head kick in the second round. The image of Rousey falling, it was like the world stopped spinning for a second. But what's interesting is that after that loss to Holm, Rousey never quite regained that same dominance.
I'm like, I'm nothing. I'm like, what do I do anymore?
Whereas Holm, she faced her own set of challenges. And at UFC 196, Tate capitalized on that opportunity, facing Holm. He was incredible, both women leaving it all in the octagon. Holm, with her striking, her footwork, she was giving Tate fits.
Right. It looked like Holm was on her way to another big win, and then, boom, Tate catches her with that rear naked choke in the 5th round.
Holm taps, and Miesha Tate, after all those years of grinding, all those ups and downs, she's the UFC Women's Bantamweight Champion. If we're talking about fighters who had a seismic impact, Forrest Griffin has to be at the top of that list. Griffin's in there with Mauricio Shogun, who at that time was considered by many to be the best light heavyweight in the world.
Shogun was a monster, coming over from Pride with that aura of invincibility.
Exactly. And everyone's expecting Griffin to get steamrolled, but instead he pulls off this stunning upset, outworking Shogun over 3 rounds, getting the decision victory.
It was a statement win, not just for Griffin, but for everyone who'd come up through The Ultimate Fighter. And speaking of changing the game, Chris Weidman and his victory over Anderson Silva.
He was like this mythical figure, untouchable, unbeatable, 16 wins in a row in the UFC, just dominating everyone they put in front of him. And then Weidman comes along, and you could tell he wasn't intimidated at all.
He had this quiet confidence about him, this belief that he could dethrone the king.
And he did. That second-round knockout, that image of Silva face down on the canvas.
It was like the whole sport took a collective gasp, like, did that just happen?
It did. But there are other underdog stories that resonate for different reasons.
Like what?
Take Henry Cooper, for example. He was a British boxer, a real working-class hero. And he fought Muhammad Ali back in 1963, when Ali was still Cassius Clay.
Wasn't he undefeated at that point?
He was. And Cooper, he was a tough game opponent, but he was a significant underdog going into that fight. In the 4th round, Cooper, he caught Ali flush on the jaw, sent him crashing to the canvas.
To be the guy who knocked down Muhammad Ali, even if you don't win the fight, that's got to go down in history.
It does. And, Ali went on to win the fight, but that moment, it showed that even the seemingly invincible could be hurt, could be vulnerable.